decision.
Okay. I'll try to talk. You guys can hear me with it on, right?
Yes.
Okay.
What, say your name again?
Anthony Servis.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to get started. So question number one, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you are interested in filling the open school board seat.
Thanks. First of all, thank you for the opportunity. As I said, my name is Anthony Servis. I live at 3804 Grant Street. I'm married. I have 2 children. Benjamin is about to be in the 3rd grade, and Eliana is about to enter kindergarten. I have undergrad degrees in psychology, sociology, criminal justice. I have a master's degree in forensic psychology, and I have certifications as a school psychologist and as a educational supervisor. I started my career, I like to think, at about 17 years old, working as a lifeguard and participating in a summer program where I taught children who were on the autism spectrum and had multiple disabilities how to swim. And I believe that's really where my career started. After I left, graduated college, I had the opportunity to volunteer and be a football coach in the town I grew up in. And that sort of parlayed to a high school wrestling coach position in Leonia in 2005. And I've been in Leonia since 2005. And I've held positions, everything from long-term substitute at the middle school and the high school, paraprofessional in a class for kids with severe autism. I did about a decade as a school psychologist and a case manager at the high school. And I'm now currently the supervisor and director of special services. Also in that time, as I said, I've been an assistant and the head wrestling coach for about 10 seasons. I did about 6 seasons as the head softball coach. And then I did a few seasons as the football coach and the JV volleyball coach. And you asked me, why I want to fill this position. I actually put my paperwork in to run in November for the full term. And I did so because basically, I come from a family in which community service is not only encouraged, but it's expected. Both of my parents were heavily involved in the community that we lived. My wife, who's a teacher, elementary school teacher in Hackensack, president of the Milnes PTA, also comes from a family of educators, coaches, teachers, administrators, where community service is important to them as well. So we teach our kids at home that you find something you're really good at and something you're passionate about, and it's okay to make money off of that, but you're also expected to take a little time to volunteer and to better your community with those skills. And so I think I have the right skill set, the right temperament. Look, I don't have to tell you guys that being on the board in 2020 and further is not an easy job. No matter what you decide, large portions of the population are going to be angry, disappointed. But I think my career has sort of prepared me for that. And I do it all in mind that I'm serving the community.
Thank you. And you answered the question, have you run for election for the school board, which you are, and why you are so.
First time.
Okay. Number 2, are you aware of the time and training commitments, ethics law disclosure, and fingerprinting background checks required for school board membership?
Yes. So I'm familiar with things like the Sunshine Law, which says, you can't have a quorum of board members either in person or via email or text and discussing business without notifying the public. I've been through background checks most recently to coach in town. I've coached a bunch of 3 seasons of wrestling, soccer, t-ball, baseball, hopefully in the fall, kickball. So I've taken and passed the background check. I know that there are certain mandatory trainings for Board of Education members, and then like anything else, there are opportunities in which you can take to increase your knowledge as a board member. I plan on doing that with the time that I have. So yes, I do think I understand. Of course, it's like anything else. I think you know it, and then you get in it, and it's maybe even a little bit more overwhelming than you originally thought, but I believe I'm prepared for it.
Thank you. What key qualities and specific skills do you feel a school board member should have to enable him or her to address the challenges of today's educational system?
So let me start by just letting you know what I think the role of the Board of Education member is, because I think that sometimes that gets lost with people who aren't in education, and I think it's actually narrower than most people think. I think the board has, their task is to hire and evaluate a superintendent. I think their job is to write policy, and that includes approving a budget. Now, the state has taken some of that in the last decade away with the 2% cap, but within that money that's allocated, 2% or less, the board has to determine how best to allocate those resources given the needs of the community. And in a community like Fairlawn, those needs are vary greatly because we're so culturally, religiously, racially, economically diverse. And I think the third part is also to be a liaison between the community and the administration and the superintendent. And so the skills that you need for that is, one, a good understanding of how school systems work, and I believe I have that from top to bottom. I think you also need to be a very good communicator and a very good listener and an active listener. You have to be able to listen to the community and listen to the people, and then sort of succinctly communicate that back to my fellow board members, to Mr. Norcia, to maybe the president of the Board of Ed, and so that we are constantly making sure that the way we vote is being informed by, to the best of our ability, to large sections of our constituents, which are the parents of Fairlawn students.
Thank you. Please give specific examples of your interpersonal relationships and teamwork abilities.
Yeah, I think my whole life has been about working on a team. I've been an athlete or a coach my whole life, as early as I can remember. I've had varying different roles there. Sometimes it was an athlete, which was to shut your mouth, open your eyes, open your ears, and follow directions. And then all the way up to the head coach, which you do have to, you're a team player. You have to coordinate with coaches as an administrator or as a school psychologist, running IEP meetings, developing programs. You'll know if you're in special education, you're talking about a student, you're talking to a couple teachers and maybe an administrator and a parent or two parents. You may have 3 or 4 different opinions on how to educate that child. And it's my job to build a consensus among everyone and to sort of get creative in how we're going to solve the problem in a way that makes everyone happy. And so I think that's key right there.
Okay, great.
And I'm sorry, was there a second part of that?
Well, it says specifically interpersonal relationships and teamwork abilities.
And teamwork. And then, of course, in my role as a coach and now as an administrator, I'm in charge of, as an administrator, I have about 40 employees that I supervise, and we are a team. They call it the Child Study Team. And team is the emphasis there, and people of all different disciplines and education and background. And I believe that my whole career, having worked in Leonia and moving from basically a substitute to the director of special services in 15 years, I think that says something about my ability to be a leader, and that the people in that community have trusted me, have seen that I've done a good job, and they've promoted me along the way because I am a good team player.
Thank you. Okay, last question. We got six and a half minutes left. What do you believe are the greatest challenges currently facing this school district? And I'll give you the other 2 parts of it. What do you see as the board's role in addressing these challenges and the administration's role in addressing these challenges?
Well, I guess the easy one that I'm sure everybody is saying is the restart. I've been a part of our district's restart committee. I've wrote huge sections of our 50-plus page restart plan. I understand that is by far the biggest thing in the short term affecting education all over the country. The role of the administrators are to get the nuts and the bolts of that plan, to do all the logistics, which is, I don't think people really appreciate the minutia that we have to plan for to get schools up and running. Everyone knows the big picture things, PPE and space, but how do you deal with, I have 2 occupational therapists, they're both part-time, and they both share the same tiny little office. How am I going to solve that problem? So the administrator's job is to come up with that plan and periodically communicate that to not only their staff, but the community. The role of the board, of course, is to oversee that, make sure the administrators are doing their job through the superintendent, and to make sure that that plan, again, meets the needs of the community as you understand it and talking to your constituents. I do, since I have a few more minutes, I'll say that, obviously first time I've ever had extra time. I will say that if you had asked me in February, obviously I'd have a total different answer. So I'll give you that answer now, which is, and I do want to say that obviously the restart is big, but we have to keep one eye on the bigger picture, because eventually COVID will pass and we will figure out how to live with this virus, and other issues that existed in February and January are still going to be there. Some of those things, obviously ones that are close to my heart, is the special education program. I believe that a district is only as good as their special education program. How we treat the people who need us the most says the most about us. And so everyone I've talked to in Fairlawn, and I've talked to a number of parents over the last couple of weeks, thinks that the special education program in Fairlawn is excellent. And so I want to keep that way. I want to be a part of making sure that stays that way. I understand that I run in Leonia a little over $2.5 million budget, which is very small compared to Fairlawn. But what people don't realize is one misstep, one wrong move on a case, and my budget can increase overnight by 10%. And that's enough to destroy a district. And so while in one hand you have to make sure you have a really good, strong, functioning special education program, you have to do it in a way that's morally, ethically, and fiscally responsible for the district. And we cannot take our eye off that ball, because it can destroy a district quickly. And two, I would say the other challenge, and of course the role of the board is similar to COVID. The administration has to come up with the plans, and the board has to oversee all of this through the superintendent. And I think the other, major challenge is, look, I have a daughter. She's about to be 6. She's about to go into kindergarten. We have to educate her and train her for a job in 12 to 14, 15 years that may not exist right now. And if it exists, it probably won't exist in the same way in a decade and a half. And that's a huge challenge, because how do you prepare someone for something that you don't quite know what it's going to look like? I've had the opportunity to interview several staff members this summer for positions in Leonia, and I've talked to a couple first-year teachers, and I said, how does it feel to be applying for a job after you've been training for 4 or 5 years that no longer exists? And they look at me like, what do you mean? I said, well, the job of teaching in 2020 and beyond is not what you were preparing for 4 years. And so with that in mind, we have to be hyper-focused on that this world is constantly changing. If this last 4 or 5 months has taught us nothing, I mean, raise your hand if you never heard of Zoom before March, and yet now we're all very proficient in it, and we had to be as professionals. We have to keep in mind that my daughter who's going into kindergarten and my son who's going into 3rd grade, we have to give them a set of skills that can translate beyond their time in high school and college. And for jobs, like I said, that may not exist or may not exist in the form that they currently exist. And that's a tough task. It's an important one. And I think it is partly the board's responsibility to make sure that the school district is headed in that direction.
Perfect. You have 1 minute and 30 seconds left. Anything else you want to add?
I'll just say, I'll reiterate that I did put my paperwork in to run in November, long before I knew there was going to be an open seat. I heard Julie say that, she feels this is more than a 4-month job, and I could not agree more. And I do think that there is some obligation to, obviously you can't control elections or have foresight to see who's going to win, but I think there is an obligation to fill this seat with someone who at least has a chance to win in November and continue on for another 2 years, because we need some stability, especially in restarting our schools. We do not know when that's going to happen. We have short a date, but the governor will come down and change that instantly, and he will. And so I think continuity is important. I think having people on this board, I don't think having someone for 4 months where we know he or she has no shot of holding the seat in November because they're not running isn't doing the community justice. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for coming in, and we appreciate it, and good luck in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.